Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to go over to Germany once again, and I took a trip over there recently as I told you. So the next 5 beer reviews that I do for you are all going to be very small brewed German Brauhaus beers, and of course that's one of the whole points of Germany, is go over there and enjoy the various local brewed beers. The Germans love their local beer, and I have to agree with them that it really is superb and it's brilliant to go over to Germany and try all of this. So the first beer we're going to try from the ones that I brought back from my trip is from Wolfsburg in Lower Saxony. This is from Brauhaus Fallersleben, and this guy is Bürgermeisterbräu, which is a very nice dunkel beer. And I tried this one in the Brauhaus and it really was excellent. And I have to point out as well that this is actually my favourite Brauhaus that I've ever come across in Germany. I used to live over there, but for some reason this Brauhaus just amazed me, just because the building is beautiful, it's very picturesque out in the beer garden. It had some of the best Brauhaus food I've ever come across in Germany, and it had a whole variety of beers. It was one of the biggest beer selections I've seen from a German Brauhaus, so it really is worth checking out. And if you do find yourself in Wolfsburg, most likely visiting the Volkswagen factory, really do go out to the Fallersleben district and check out this brewery. It's one of the best I've come across in Germany. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews, I will take you through a very brief history of the brewery. It will only be a minute or two, but if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with a link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do from these guys in the very near future. But you will get one more really quite soon, because I did bring back one of their seasonal beers as well. And the brewery website, incidentally, is available to you both in the original German version and in a translated English version. But anyway, to tell you about Fallersleben Brauhaus, the old brewery is in the Fallersleben district of Wolfsburg, and it was constructed in 1765 by the local people next to the Fallersleben Castle. And the idea was that the brewery would serve as the distillery and as the brewery for the local castle. And this was an area. The Lower Saxony region of Germany was really thriving in this 18th century period, if you like, in brewing and distilling, and of course that was quite a common thing for castles and monasteries and stuff in Germany to have their own brewery to brew beer for the monks and for the various representatives at the castle and things like that. But what really amazed me about this brewery was the architecture of the building. It's one of the most beautiful ones I've actually come across, and when you first go to see it, it looks as if it's an old converted barn, and it has this really crazily high roof that's on a very kind of steep incline, if you like, but it looks just like an old converted barn. But the thing to remember when you first see it is that it is actually a purpose-built brewery. But a few of the interesting architectural features of this brewery is the fact that it has a 4-storey gambrel roof, and it's got multiple dormer windows on it, and beside the windows you actually have these little kind of almost like massive post box slit things. And the idea was that the granary was in the roof of this building, and this was where they used to treat the malt. So this was basically the air intake for the granary where the brewery would treat all their malt. And I think one of the rooms in the building actually still serves as that purpose, but most of them have been converted into offices and hotel rooms and things like that. But downstairs you'll find a really beautiful, typically German bar, loads of different beers on here. As I said, this had one of the best beer selections that I came across in a German Brauhaus before, so it really is worth going and checking out. And the food is awesome, and the beer garden just has this beautiful kind of leafy garden outside with some fountains, so definitely go and check it out. But what amazed me about this is Wolfsburg, of course, is home to the Volkswagen factory, and so you drive about 3 or 4 miles away out of the kind of industrial town of Wolfsburg, and then you're just in this leafy suburb. And a lot of the tourists who find themselves in Wolfsburg go there for the Volkswagen factory, and this is the biggest car production facility in the world. And the town itself of Wolfsburg isn't the sort of nicest town you'll come across in Germany. It's quite an industrial one that was constructed to house the workers of this Volkswagen plant. But this place is ridiculous. I mean, it throws out 6,000 cars per day, and it's the size of a small country. They said it was about the same size as Gibraltar, so that gives you an idea of the scale of this complex. But it's just amazing to find such a beautiful little Brauhaus just a mile or two down the road from one of the biggest industrial heartlands of Germany. So it shows you the Germans have a very hard working culture, but they really know how to relax. And this is my favourite Brauhaus I've come across in Germany. I've said that a few times in this video, but really do go and check them out. Just to list a few of the other beers that these guys do, and they are beautiful. I tried a few of them when I was there. You get the Fallersleben Schlossbräu, which is a Pils beer. This is the core range, by the way. You get the Bürgermeisterbräu, which is this one here, the dunkel beer. They also have the Anno 1765er, which is the Helles beer. They have the Fallersleben hefeweizen, and there's a few different versions of this. You get the regular alcohol version, but you also also get the alcohol-free version, the alcohol-free one. And there's two different versions of this on top of the regular one. You have an apple version and an elderflower version, which my dad tried the elderflower one, I believe, and it was actually quite an interesting beer. You also get the rot beer, which I tried, which is really quite nice. You have the apple beer, which is meant to be quite nice too. And you also have the Brauhaus Lemon, which is a Radler beer, but it comes out the tap as a Radler rather than them mixing it. So quite interesting. But they also have various seasonal beers too, and they have a new one every month. And the one that I saw that was listed for June, I'm filming this beer just at the very start of June. For the June beer they had a strawberry beer, and for July they were listing a cherry beer, but when I was there it was alt beers that they had as their yard-side beer or their seasonal beer. So there's a whole host of different beers available from this brewery, and as I told you, it's one of the best selections of beer that I've come across from a Brauhaus in Germany. Most of them only brew 3 or 4 beers at a time, usually 3 regulars and 1 seasonal. So really go and check out this brewery. It really was incredible and very beautiful just to sit down and enjoy a meal and a few beers in. So anyway, without further ado, let's get on to the tasting of this beer. I'm really excited to review this one for you, because when I tried it, this was a really, really beautiful dunkel beer. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. I believe when you're talking about Bürgermeister, I think this is sort of Castle Master, so I believe this is one of the symbols of the Fallersleben castle. Just put the light down so that you can actually see that a bit better. The light's being a bit of a pain, but it's very nicely presented. This is actually only a half-litre bottle of beer. You might think it's one of the litre ones, but it is only 500 millilitres, and it has the typical kind of pop cap on Germany, and it tells you the ingredients on the top. The ingredients: water, malt, hops, and wheat, actually, I believe it says. So this guy, of course, will be brewed in accordance with the German Reinheitsgebot, but without further ado, let's pop it open and we'll get on with the tasting. So this one is a 4.9% dunkel beer. I'll just get that out, actually. I'm not sure, it was just sticking there, but we'll get it out and get it poured. So as I told you, this beer was really nice when I tried it on tap, so I'm very excited to review this one for you today. And the dunkel beer, I have to admit, is probably one of my kind of go-to beers when it comes to the German style beers. I always liked the German Helles beers, a nice hoppy Helles beer, and also, which is the Dortmunder Helles, by the way, and I also really like the dunkel beer. So I'll just bring up the light and let you have a little look at the exact colour of this beer. As you can see, it's poured a nice typical dunkel colour. It's a nice sort of coppery, rich amber colour. It is hazy. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see right through the thing. The light is really being bad in this video, but you can see it's a nice hazy, actually, hazy feel, and it's got a nice kind of 3-finger frothy, slightly beigey coloured head, actually, slightly tan but kind of creamy coloured at the same time, but it looks really, really nice, and it does pour like a typical German dunkel beer. The Germans love their beer to have a nice big head on it like that, but this is a nice frothy head, which is typical of German beer. There's actually not much carbonation visible on this one, so maybe that's just the bottle conditioning, of course, because they do condition this beer slightly differently rather than if they would just pour it straight out the tap. So it looks a very, very nice beer. And yeah, I'm just surprised that there's absolutely no carbonation visible in this one. So let's just get the last little bit of this out and into the glass, and then we'll check out the aroma. There's a little bit of sediment just coming out of it there, I should point out. But let's have a look at the aroma of this beer now. So, as is typical with the dunkel beer, you're getting a nice big bready malt base in this one. It's got a nice kind of sweet bready malt base, but on top of that, you're getting a nice sort of biscuity aroma. Nice kind of biscuity. There's actually quite a nice sweet kind of caramel aroma coming out of this one. Pretty strong caramel, actually. But it does smell, the kind of bread aromas you're getting out of this guy really do smell quite buttery, if that makes sense. So it's a nice big buttery, white bready aroma coming out here. But you've definitely got a little bit of a kind of biscuity and more of a caramel sharp sweetness coming out of this one. But it's slightly toasted as well. You are getting a bit of a toasted aroma coming out of here. But there is, if you let it settle a bit, you can get a kind of noble hop out of it. You're getting a sort of earthy character. It must use Hallertau hops or Tettnanger hops, the two German hop producing regions. The hops must be from one of these two regions, because it definitely reminds me a little bit of the German noble hops. So you're getting a little bit of an earthy character out of it, but there's a definite kind of grassy element coming out too. But it's a nice big biscuity malt. And big bready element coming out there too. A nice toasted bready element. You can pick up just a little bit of a kind of cereal character in it. But overall it's a big bready beer, some nice biscuity and caramel sweetness to it. And a little bit of that German noble hop too. So it has all the typical elements that you would expect of a German dunkel beer. So without further ado, this is the Bürgermeisterbräu dunkel beer, which is from Brauhaus Fallersleben in Wolfsburg. Cheers. Prost. That beer is actually kept really beautifully in the bottle. It tastes exactly as it did when I tried it in the brewery. So, as you would expect, it's a big malty beer. There's a nice big sweet caramel coming out of this one. As I told you before, it's got a bit of a biscuity, kind of slightly grainy feel to it as well. But it just blankets the middle of the tongue with a nice big buttery bread feel. And that, as I say, just blankets the middle of your palate there. But then right in the middle of the tongue, you're getting a nice kind of sweet, quite sharp actually caramel in there. It's not a toasted caramel actually, but it's a nice sweet caramel. And just as you move further out, the caramel sweetness becomes a little bit more biscuity. But there is a definite kind of cereal presence in there, but it's not spicy if you like. It's just kind of there, if that makes sense. It's not as kind of cereal spice as you get in some of these sort of English bitter style beers. It's more like the bread is actually kind of brown or slightly rye-ish bread flavour. The Germans like their bread to have a little bit of a cereal flavour to it most of the time. But yeah, it's a very nice and very smooth dunkel beer. Has all the elements you expect. Around the edge of the tongue you're getting a little bit of the hop character, but it's not really bitter in that sense, if you like. This beer really isn't bitter at all. It's a very nice, sweet, malty beer and very, very smooth. So around the edge of the tongue you're getting a nice, just a very slightly dry, slightly earthy, noble hop character to this one. It's a little bit earthy just around the back, but it's a nice kind of fresh grass feel at the same time, but it's not sharp in the same way that some of the American beers are with the aromatic and floral character. It's just a nice kind of smooth grass flavour. It must be quite, these hops must be conditioned really specifically to get that flavour, but it's just beautifully done. All of the flavours in this, the nice earthy character, it isn't too harsh, so the nice caramel sweetness just blends in with it, and the little kind of cereally rye bread flavour that you're getting in the middle of the tongue blends in with it very well. So pardon me, the whole beer goes very, very smoothly across the palate, and this is why I actually like these small Brauhaus beers so much. They always brew a really, really good Helles beer and a really, really good dunkel beer. It's the particular element I love of German beer is the big bready malt base, and it goes so well with the Tettnanger and with the Hallertau hops. That's the word I was looking for. But yeah, very, very smooth beer, and as I say, that nice buttery bread, slightly rye bread flavour actually just blends so well with that kind of earthy, slightly earthy character. It's actually a quite sweet earthy character around the back sides of the tongue, and as you go around that front arch of the tongue, that's where the hop gets just a little bit more grassy. I'm not picking up any fruit flavour out of the hops in this one. It is just a very smooth and very light grassy hop around the front of the tongue, and earthy as you move into the sides. A big bready malt base, some buttery bread malt base, slightly toasted with a little bit of a kind of rye-ish bread character in there, and then a sweet caramel right in the middle and some biscuity flavours too. So it's a really beautifully done dunkel beer. In terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would say that it's mid-bodied. It has your typical German Brauhaus beer feel. It's actually very smooth, but it's a little bit thicker than some of the beers that you'll find in the likes of Britain and America. It does have just that kind of big, full flavoured, bready flavour coming out of it, and it's done really well. It's kind of mid-bodied, maybe pushing the full-bodied a little bit slightly, but it maybe feels a little bit heavier than it actually is just because of how smooth the carbonation is in this. You only get a little bit of carbonation at the front of the tongue when you take this one in, but overall it's a hugely sweet malty beer, and it just has a little bit of that hop character. But interestingly with this one, even the hop character in this is quite sweet. It's not really dry at all. You only get just this very faint hint of dryness around the front of the tongue when you get the grassy hop. So it's a very typical German malty sweet dunkel beer with just a little bit of a kind of a slightly hoppy, grassy dryness at the front, and that's the noble hops for you. So overall, this is a really, really beautiful German dunkel beer. I love this style of beer. It's not in what some typical American beer lovers will want. It's not very hop forward. It's more of a malt forward beer. But I personally, I love German dunkel beers, as I say. So if you love this style too, go and check it out. And as I told you in the history section of this video, Brauhaus Fallersleben is my favourite one that I've come across while being in Germany, and I've lived there for a little while and seen quite a few of these, and it's just amazing to go to Wolfsburg, which is obviously a huge industrial centre, and then you find this beautiful Brauhaus in a very leafy suburb. So definitely go and check it out, and I would recommend that you try the dunkel beer. This is one of their regular beers, so you will find it year round. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review and it's not too obscure for you. I always like doing these very small German beer reviews. It's really cool when I get the chance to do it, but I hope you've enjoyed the beer nonetheless. If you do happen to have tried this beer, let me know in the comment section your own thoughts below. I always like reading your comments, but I hope you've enjoyed this beer review, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this German beer, and there will be a few more to follow in the coming days for you, and I'll catch you soon with those beer reviews. Prost.